Thank you so much, Christina. Good afternoon, colleagues, but also good afternoon, the NGO host. Thank you so much for those words. On behalf of the IG representative in the GFF, I would like to welcome you all to this very important meeting. This is a Pre-IG16 webinar where I want to solicit your feedback on what already Christina has mentioned, that on Friday we'll have the IG meeting. So in that IG meeting, we have an agenda before us. And the IG representative shared this agenda to all the CSOs so that we can have an idea of what will be discussed. So there are key agenda items which will be discussed for Friday. And I think one such is on the governance roadmap, but also we'll be discussing issues around the evaluation, but also key will be discussing about the resource mobilization. As you know, the GFF has embarked on a campaign for resource mobilization. So those are key agenda items according to the program which was received so far. So this meeting is an opportunity for the wider civil society in the CSG to say something or to help out in terms of what do you think as your representatives will be able to say when we meet with the IG on Friday. So we'll correct what you're going to advise and also looking at the agenda items which will be shared and which will be shared by my colleague Miriam. And also on the call, I'm joined by Miriam. I'm also Maria. I'm also joined by Jackie. I'm also joined by Kenneth. I'm also joined by Oemi, but also Mariama will be joining us, of course. So basically, this is just for us as a IG representative, just to get feedback from you on the guiding documents which you have received from the Secretariat so that we can get your feedback. So thank you so much for giving me opportunity that I should share this on the behalf of my colleagues in the IG. Over to you and your host. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Maziko, for these introductory words. Thank you, Christina, also for putting us in context. And without losing any further time, I would like to maybe give the floor to Stephanie from the GFF Secretariat to kickstart us with an overview of the IG16 agenda and priorities. Stephanie, I trust you're with us, so over to you.
Hi, Vincent. Thanks. Can you hear me okay? Yeah, great. It's really good to see everyone. Thanks so much for having us on the call. I'm Stephanie Salisbury. I'm a partnership specialist with the GFF Secretariat. And so I work really closely with my colleague, Matt Didia, on civil society and youth engagement, but also on the governance side. So including a lot of the partner and donor engagement at the global level. So as Maziko said, he gave a good overview already about some of the upcoming agenda items for the meeting on Friday, but I thought I could maybe give you a little more detail. And if you have any follow-up questions, I'm also happy to answer them. So as Christina mentioned, there'll be a meeting on Friday on the 21st, and it's a condensed meeting. So it's a little, we're covering less than usual, but it will be hybrid. So we're happy that the folks that are at Women Deliver, including our IG reps and youth reps, will be able to participate in person, and then some folks will be online. So we're really going to cover three main topics. The first is a governance roadmap, and this is actually for IG endorsement. So it's really important if you have questions or comments about this to let your reps know, because this will be a decision-making point. But basically, for some quick background on this piece, the GFF governance, specifically the IG, went through a review in 2019 just to sort of ensure the process and model was still fit for purpose. And it was a really inclusive process, and civil society was part of that. And that's how we ended up getting an additional youth seat on the IG. But since COVID, we started to take a step back and realize it might be a good time to take stock to ensure that sort of the cadence of meetings is still fit for purpose, that the key priority areas are still important for all of the constituencies. And so that really will be the purpose of this session, is to go through the cadence of meetings, how many times a year we meet as opposed to before, and some of the next 18 months key priority areas to ensure we're all aligned on what the most important agenda items are moving forward. And so the questions will, and you may have seen in the deck, but some of the questions will be, to ensure that the trust fund committee meeting continues to follow the investors group meeting, so the investors group are able to feed into decisions that the donors make. Also meeting once in person to ensure the CSCG workshop continues to take place in a partner country. And then the other time of year, it will be a virtual meeting. So just kind of questions like that, and will be a good time to discuss as a group and then also make a decision on the proposed way forward. The next item is on the GFF evaluation, and this will be an independent evaluation. The trust fund committee essentially commissioned it, and we discussed with them that because we're about halfway through the strategy, it's now a really good time to take stock. And this is going to be really important for investors group and specifically civil society, because the process is going to be led by a steering committee, and civil society will have a seat on that steering committee to ensure that partners really own the process and are able to guide the process. So there'll be more information on that at the meeting itself. And then the third item is on the resource mobilization campaign. And again, civil society plays a huge role in this. And this is more of a discussion sort of to update the group on where we're at in the campaign and sort of ways that partners can really engage moving forward to ensure it's a successful campaign. So those are really the three main agenda items for the meeting. I'm happy to answer any questions, or if I've missed anything, I'm happy for my IG rep colleagues to come in, or I'm not sure if Mati is on the call, but if she has anything to add, she'll be doing a quick overview of the resource mobilization campaign. So if you have questions on that, maybe we can hold until after her presentation. Vincent, I see Miria has her hand up, so should we? Okay.
All right, thank you, Stephanie. This is Miria Kutsumpa from Vemos, one of the IG reps for this IG meeting as well. Thank you for presenting the agenda. Agreed, when it comes to resource mobilization, let's wait after Mati's presentation to get deeper into that. But we had some thoughts and questions that will benefit, I think, the whole constituency to share now. So with regards to the governance document, I think we think that it makes good sense, and actually our point there was indeed to make sure that the content of the TFC agenda really flows from the IG, so we can really play this advisory role, because lately has been a bit with the changes in the meetings that had not been happening. So I'm happy that you brought this up by yourself already. With regards to the evaluation, we read as well that there's going to be a seat for civil society. So thanks for confirming that as well. And we were wondering if you can share a few thoughts about which were maybe already some challenges that the GFF saw that even triggered the evaluation to start happening, besides the fact that we are midway in the strategy. And we were also wondering if this evaluation is also some first steps towards the post-2025 GFF strategy, if we can consider like the beginning of that. So while we wait for maybe more questions to come in the chat, maybe you have some more things to share.
Sure, and I thought I saw a question in the chat, but maybe I missed it. But I can go ahead and answer your question now, and if Vincent or anyone can kind of collate any other questions that come in the chat, that would be useful. So yes, you're correct on the governance piece. Definitely, that's a key part, is ensuring that the IG continues to play an advisory role to the TFC. So we want to ensure that stays as is. And so on the evaluation piece, I mean, I think the main motivating driver is because we are halfway through this strategy and it's really a good time to take stock. But also, to your point, we are aware that we're going to have to start the new strategy here shortly. So we really want sort of the outcome of this to inform that next strategy. I think I wouldn't say it's challenges, but I think it's an important piece to continue to evaluate, is really avoiding duplication at the country level. Also sort of evaluating any gaps, especially when it comes to TA and other sort of country level processes. I think that those are the kind of pieces that we've been ramping up within the model, such as the alignment working group, and really sort of identifying where some of those really key areas to the model could use some enhancement. So I think that's going to be part of the focus, but sort of, you know, I do think that it's going to be a partner owned and led process. And so ensuring that what the partners think is sort of important to look at is going to be taken into consideration. And I think the presentations that you all got in advance for this meeting sort of highlight some of the key questions that will be asked. And I think that's a good indicator of sort of the direction that we wanted to propose. But nothing is set in stone in terms, you know, that's why we're doing these meetings, just to make sure we're all kind of owning the process.
Thank you.
Looking at sorry, did you want to come in, Miri? I was looking at the chat.
No, just to tell you that, yeah, there is this question in the chat that maybe you can take.
Okay, so urge the IG to put mechanisms which govern. Oh, okay.
There's a question.
Yeah.
I think there's a, yes, Stefan, there's a question on involve civil society in GFF planning, implementation, and evaluation.
Yeah, no, and I mean, that's definitely, I think the governance roadmap, you're correct, is sort of more on the governance model itself, so on the IG and the TFC, but also, I mean, what comes out of those meetings are really important to inform what goes on at the country level. And so I think the goal is always to include or to ensure civil society has a seat on the table when it comes to the GFF process in country, including working with the government and the World Bank. And you know, that's why the Secretariat actually has a focal point. A part of the governance mechanism is a Secretariat piece as well, and the World Bank. And, you know, the Secretariat has a focal point for each country and then a liaison officer for each country as well, that, you know, work really closely with the government and should be sort of kept in the loop about what's going on in the CSO agenda as well. And that's why I think it's important that Matti does the job she does for the Secretariat to ensure that the CSO priorities are continually fed into the government processes as well, and ensuring that our colleagues at the Secretariat are able to make those connections as well. So, you know, I think for the purpose of this session, it's a bit of a higher view, but I think it's really important to feed in to the work that's going on at the country level. And I want to also just, I see Matti's on the line. Okay. Maziko, you have your hand up. Did you?
Yes, I think this question keep on coming. I know that Stephen and the Secretariat, you have done a lot of work in terms of making sure that the focal persons and liaison officers helping out in terms of engagement at country level. But to my recollection, these processes are done by countries. So as civil society in the country, also need to influence our country systems, because the liaison office and the focal person. So I think we need maybe to get more feedback from our CSO colleagues, just to have a view on what happened to different countries, so that we can have an idea on whether it's working or it's not working, or what other things can be done for our liaison and focal person to support the involvement at that level. It's just a comment. Thank you.
Yeah, and I actually think that will be really key for the evaluation piece, because now, now is sort of the time to take stock on that. And since civil society will have a seat on that steering committee, I think if as a constituency, you can sort of compile the key priority areas that should be examined as part of it, as part of the evaluation, this would be a really good opportunity to raise those. I see Kenneth has his hand up, and then Jackie.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much, Stephanie. And hi, everyone. I will have one or two quick questions for you. The first one would be about the evaluation process. I would like to know if you are planning also to evaluate the constituency and the TFC as well. And the second question would be about the challenges that we have been talking about earlier, but more about the resource mobilization campaign. What are the challenges that you are anticipating now, and how are you planning to face them to have a successful resource mobilization campaign? Thank you.
Thanks, Kenneth. And I see actually also Jackie has her hand up, so maybe I'll take her question as well before I answer Kenneth's.
Yeah, thank you so much. But my actual question and comment is regarding the participation of CSOs at country level. Recently, there was a survey that was done, and I would say 60% of that survey was trying to find out how CSOs are working in different processes at country level. So I wanted to know whether that could be evidence that we can access as we engage at country level, because different countries responded. And yes, as Maziko said, it would be good to find out the different challenges that different countries face, because we are at different levels. In Uganda, we are at a different level, and we've engaged, but still not to be getting through. And also other countries also are already doing very well. So at our level as IG, maybe, and using the evidence that will come from the survey, that will be helpful to engage further and also learn from each other what has worked and what has not worked. The other one is what Kenneth said. The scope, is it where we going, the evaluation going to cover the CSOs as well, the platforms and all the government? What is the scope of the evaluation? Thank you.
Thanks, Jackie. And I don't see any other hands, so I could take those too. And so on the survey, Jackie, I'm not sure. I know there's been many surveys going around, so I'm not sure which exact survey you're referencing. Was it a survey the Secretariat sent out?
It was by GFF Secretariat, the latest that we've done.
Okay, I'll have to look into that, because I know there's been a lot, and I know, PAI circulated some surveys as well for the host organization. So we can let's touch base offline to make sure it's the exact survey. But I think by all means, the data that's come out of that should be made available, or at least the key themes. And so yeah, let's find which one that is, and then we can discuss how to share that data a little bit more widely. And on the scope of the evaluation, I don't think it's a time to dive deep into the specific constituencies, especially the CSOs. I don't think that's going to come out as, there won't be any specific deep dive evaluation into the CSO or youth constituency. I think the point of having, or the purpose of having it driven by a steering committee, not only is so the process could be owned by partners, but also so partners can kind of like highlight some of the key issue areas that they see from where they sit in their constituency. I don't think that we'll have sort of the scope to dive deeper into that, but also it's sort of a self-run process, right? So it's not really for the GFF to tell CSOs how they run and vice versa. So I think the main scope of the evaluation will be on the model itself, especially on country level, and what's working and what's not, and sort of how we can adapt moving forward, especially in relation to the strategy and sort of the current logic framework, and some of the key results, approach to results, because as part of the evaluation, in addition to the steering committee, there'll be other groups that feed into it, such as the results advisory group, right? And that's predominantly comprised of members from the country level. So I think that's really going to be the main focus of this evaluation. But also, you know, at the meeting, Peter, who leads our results team, will be there and he'll present, and I think he'll have a lot more information, but I do know that this evaluation probably won't start until the end of this year and will continue into 2024. So it's still a bit of an evolving process. So Vincent, I don't know if, I know we're also short on time, and I'm not sure if other folks have questions. So I'm not sure if I should hand it to Matti or.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Stephanie. I think we can wrap also additional question following Matti's intervention and the remaining civil society and youth IG reps. So thank you so much, Stephanie, for all these updates. And so Matti, as you're with us already, let me give you the floor. Over to you, Matti. Thank you.
Hello, can you hear me?
Perfect.
Hi, good morning,
Yes.
good afternoon, everyone. À mes collègues francophones, je m'excuse, aujourd'hui, je vais parler en anglais. Pour des raisons logistiques, j'espère que tout le monde va bien. I hope everybody's well. Thank you, Stephanie, for the introduction. Thanks also to Vincent and the NGO host for this invitation and allowing us to join you for this important meeting. I'm going to just share a quick update. I know a lot of you have already seen the GFF investment opportunity, and that many of you have already been engaged and have seen the campaign, which was launched end of June. I'm just gonna quickly present an overview of the investment opportunity, as well as share the timeline of the campaign, some information about the campaign, and just maybe share with you what the Secretariat is hoping that the CSO constituency can, how they can engage, but also provide you with some resources that will help you engage in the campaign between now and the replenishment. Vincent, if you allow me to share my my screen, do you have it here? So what the GFF is looking to achieve with this campaign that is hosted by, as you know, Côte d'Ivoire, Germany, the World Bank, as well as the Netherlands. What you can see here, apologies. Oh, sorry, this is not working. It should not be presenting. What you can see here is what we're expecting to achieve by the end of October, by the replenishment, which is happening in at the World Health Summit in October 15th or 16th. We're looking to achieve an 800 billion target, million target, not billion. And with this funding, we hope to consolidate the work that has been done in the last few years. It will allow us to deliver on the remainder of the strategy until 2025, and mobilize a total of 20.5 billion by 2015, including funding that is coming through IDA, IBRD financing, and a work to support country health plans. It's also to help us provide another 5 million in financing from other development partners, and additional 7.5 in domestic resource mobilization. This is expected, but as you know, countries are actually struggling to mobilize resources because of the pandemic recovery. So why is it that we need to invest? I think it's obvious. A lot of countries are struggling right now with the polycrisis that have been happening since COVID, struggling to be back on track, struggling to invest in health. And we expect about, in the next 5 years, 41 countries, we expect funding for health to decline in 41 countries. It's already happening now, but they are struggling to have, you know, some serious investment in health at country level. And we have still 250 million women who cannot access modern contraceptives across countries, and 4.5 million women, babies that die every year, mostly from preventable diseases. What this funding would also help us have, and that's the reason of the urgency, is to make sure that we expand access to PHC, build strong, resilient health systems to make sure that we achieve the SDGs and save 7.8 million lives between now and 2030. As you know, the 36 GFF countries, out of the 62 eligible countries for the GFF, the 36 GFF countries are home to 2/3 of all maternal and child death. So this is really why it's really important that we get this funding to support progress towards the SDGs, but also lower the maternal and child death that is happening. So why invest in the GFF? This is a snapshot, and I will share all these resources after the call. Why this is important to fund the GFF. Not only it allows to unlock additional funding, but right now with the IDA replenishment, we can make sure that there is some funding at country level that is ring-fenced and going through RMNCA-HN. And this IDA replenishment is very timely because this will help us not only ring-fence the funding, but also donor countries will help with the help of the GFF, get some technical resources to help them work on health reforms, on financing reforms, and increase the shared allocation that is going towards maternal, child, and adolescent health and nutrition. So these allocations, of course, are not set by the GFF. This is a country-led process, but the GFF is helping facilitate how countries and governments can fund their health plans with the money that is available at country level, helping them design the programs, helping them work on health financing reforms. And we have, through the investment opportunities, more details in how this is happening and how this has happened in some countries. And this is something that you can share. This is really a snapshot of what you have in the investment opportunity. I just wanted to share with you, but this is all information that the CSCG has already received. And I can go deeper in details when the questions come in. So in terms of timeline, you are right at the middle of, I mean, it's the beginning of the campaign, but you're in the middle of the campaign where you see the Women Deliver conference, where you will, through the booth and through the different engagements that many of you will have that are present or that are attending virtually, you know, using the opportunity to raise, not only raise the profile of the GFF, raise the profile of the campaign, but insist on the investment of gender, of women, children, adolescents, and nutrition. We also have next week the African Heads of State Human Capital Summit. It's happening, it's the first one that's happening. It's happening next week. Some of you might be attending. There will be civil society attendance in some of the summit. The engagement can be online. We also have UNGA. Many of you are also attending UNGA. So there will be, and maybe there are some other events that you might know of that you are attending that you can share with us between now and the replenishment. And we can discuss this now or in future meetings. And then we have the replenishment event that is happening between the 15th and the 17th of October in Berlin. Many of you will again be engaged in this, and I know as many of you sitting on the call have engaged in previous replenishments, not only online at the replenishment events itself in Oslo and in 2020 virtually, but there has been consistent engagement from the constituency members, either in their home countries or through the GFF We Want campaign, but also through different actions that are happening in different places, either through satellite events or at meetings where you can piggyback on these meetings, such as the Women Deliver, and raise the profile and importance of the profile of the GFF, but importance of funding the GFF. What this looks like is how you've been engaging. Some have done some call to actions through policy briefs. Some have been writing to donors, to embassies, but also targeting, and I will add to this, targeting specific donors where the GFF is still working to have donors commit, either through old pledges, commit new pledges, or keep supporting the GFF for the next few years. Digital and online campaigns. I've seen some campaigns on Facebook, on Twitter, doing Twitter storms. Some of you have written blogs, organized meetings with your country ministers, knowing and acknowledging that right now, as I said when I started, domestic resource mobilization is really, really difficult in GFF countries, particularly because of what has happened in the last few years. You can try, and I'm not saying we should not target, the GFF recipient countries to mobilize more funding for health. It's very, very difficult because they are under severe fiscal constraints. So these are some of the actions that you can do, but also, and I'll speak to this afterwards, making sure that whatever impact story you have and however you want to tell the story, we can help if you bring these stories. Of course, the NGO host is here and is doing that, but we in the Secretariat can also help leverage these stories through different channels so that donors will continue supporting the GFF, but supporting CSOs. And this is really, really critical because, as you have seen in the some of the governance document, next calendar year will be critical as we are coming through the second and last year of the GFF NGO host project. Is going to be critical for us to mobilize more funding for civil society. The ambition is to increase, of course. We were able to secure 6 million a few years ago. The ambition is to increase this amount. But again, it depends on how much money we are able to mobilize and how much will be allocated to civil society. Just something that many of you already know, but you should I should insist on. Donors are extremely, extremely supportive of civil society. And it's, I've said this before, we went from having to make our case to be at the table. Now it's really how the GFF really leverages CSOs, the partnership with civil society, to change the narrative, not only through country platforms, but change the impact and the delivery of the programs itself. So it's really important that these stories of impact are brought to the table, brought to the donors, so that they can support the GFF, but also support, increase the support that we are getting right now. 1 year is far away, but it's also a very, very it's a very short time to convince donors to keep supporting us. So this is a a few resources that you have seen. They've been shared last week, I think, or 2 weeks ago. You have the campaign hashtag. Some of you have already been engaging. You have the website, and this will be shared with you again. The slide, the PowerPoint will be shared with you, and you'll have a link to all these information. If you don't have them, I'll be happy to share that again through the chat. You have the investment opportunity summary, but you also have the longer version, which is about, I think, 21 or 22 pages. And you also have social media toolkits with the different messages that you can adapt based on your context, based on your message that you want to share. Some of the critical some of the critical donor markets that we are really looking to push very, very strongly are Spain, France, Sweden, Norway, the US, and the UK. So these are some of the markets where we have been in really serious discussions with the different stakeholders at country level that are deciding for the next, the future, the funding of the GFF. And these are some of the markets where we really need to push harder. We also have some commitments, including the Netherlands, that have committed, and Miria, I know you can speak to this, that has committed for the remainder of the campaign. We know Côte d'Ivoire in 2018 was able to commit 1 million, as well as Burkina. Then they're not co-hosting the campaign, but we hope that we will get some more commitments from some of the partners that have been supporting the GFF for the last few years. Unfortunately, what we see is with what's happening right now, countries, even donor countries, are under fiscal constraints because of the security situation that is happening. So that is the reason why we are still struggling to get the commitments from those countries, but still very optimistic and very hopeful that something good will come out between now and October 15th. So this is something that I've already shared. I will stop there and just maybe leave it for questions if you have any. And all the documents, again, are available online and in more details. Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mati. And I just wanted to highlight that all the resource documents are for now available in English. But Mati, correct me if I'm wrong, that they will be available in French as well very shortly. So
they should be available. I just came back from a 2-week leave and I'm still catching up on emails. I've asked the question before the call this morning to make sure that we had Francophone versions of the, and that's the reason why I'm presenting in English, because I haven't seen them yet, but it should be available, and I will, thanks Stephanie. So it should be available very, very soon, and we'll make sure that you have them ASAP.
Thank you so much. And that will allow me then to give the floor to Oyeyemi, who will be acting as first respondent among our civil society and youth IG reps. Jackie also will have a word, and I see Kenneth has his hands raised. Thank you very much for being briefed. I think we are just on time for this part of the conversation, which is a Q&A session with the GFF Secretariat. Thank you very much. Over to you, Oyeyemi.
Okay, thank you, Vincent. Thank you, Mati. Can everyone hear me clearly? Okay, awesome. Thank you, Mati, for the wonderful presentation. So I just want to reiterate that this is our campaign as CSOs. We are supporting the GFF for the replenishment, and so we should definitely take it so seriously. I see Esther talking about the fact that CSOs should be hard on accountability. Yes, we need funds and all of that, and then our role as CSOs is actually to ensure that there's accountability for the funds that we are getting. And so more money for this replenishment means we have more funds for CSOs to actually do this role. So let's see it as our thing, our campaign, and put in all in it. And for Mati, I think it will also be good for people on the call to know which donor markets, as you have already even said that there are donor markets which we are targeting. Among these targets, who have really made them pledge? Has anyone probably committed and probably given the money already, so that we can know how to construct our messages, so that we don't go about trying to convince someone who had already pledged or probably even done with the pledge. So it would be lovely to have something like that, so that we know who the targets are, what they've done, to what extent, and then we know what the messages we are taking to them. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mati. Thank you so much, Vincent. Mati, thank you so much for clearly articulating the target and where the needs are. And I said most of the GFF countries, we are grappling with poor performance indicators for RAMNAC, high maternal and child death, but very, very important building sustainable, resilient health systems that were more disintegrated by COVID. One more reason that you gave was if we get more funds, apart from looking for more funds to really address the challenges, you said if there's more money that can be ring-fenced for RAMNAC, but it was not clear, was this RAMNAC for civil society or RAMNAC as a whole broad aspect in the country? Because we know, or we've had, that idea that country level there should be some resources that should be able to support civil society beyond what we get, for example, from the CSO host again, which is GFF. So when you say that if we get more funds, we are able to ring fence, then I was quickly very, very inquisitive to find out where is this RAMNAC? Is it a CSO or the broader concept? The other aspect is in terms of the mapping of the donors. Yes, we talked about who are these donors. We have some CSOs who could be joining us for the first time and are not very clear with the entire governance structure. You might not say it all, the entire IG structure, but at least the donors beyond the ones that you mentioned, who are very critical and who are supporting the GFF mechanism. Because outside, for some people who are not involved, they think actually the World Bank has all the money and they just give the money to GFF. So that will be very critical. And I'll stop here for now by reoccurring that, yes, Esther, you're very right. And they keep on asking us, whereas CSOs are holding us accountable, but also as donors are saying, okay, we want to see where the money is going. We want to see results. How can we, in Uganda, Chad, and everywhere in civil society, that's what we are calling mutual accountability, but also value for money. And remember, we are dealing with people who deal with money. Value for money is very key. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jackie. Let me thank everyone for this great intervention, and thank you again, Mati, for your great presentation. Kenneth, do you have a question? Shall I give the floor to you briefly? Over to you.
Yes, please. Thank you very much, Vincent. Thank you, Mati, for the presentation. About the resource mobilization campaign, I want to say that the GYP that we are co-chairing with Arafat is willing and will work with you closely to PI and GFF, also to support the GFF resource mobilization campaign through the viewpoint of the USAID organization, the different constituencies that we are federating now. I had a question, but it's more like one question, because you practically already responded to one about the challenges for the resource mobilization campaigns, and you talked about these fiscal constraints. And I would like to know, maybe for all the constituency, to know how, what are the materials, what are the ideas that we also use to face this challenge, and not let this challenge of fiscal constraint stop the resource mobilization campaign, or slow it down. The second question, it is the same range of ideas concern the number of 800 millions. What is the percentage of this number? What percentage do we consider like a success for the resource mobilization campaign? Because we know we are hoping to reach all the 800 million, but what percentage can we consider it as a success for the resource mobilization campaign? This would be my question about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Kenneth.
I'm sorry, can you repeat your first question? You said something about the challenges, but I
yes, the challenges, you talked about the fiscal constraints how are we facing it? How are we solving this issue concerning the fiscal constraint or from the donors part? Yeah, this is the question.
Should I respond to the first batch of questions?
Absolutely, Mathieu, over to you.
Great, thank you. Thank you all for the questions. I'll start with the last one. Kenneth, that's $1 million question you asked there. I mean, the countries, the donor countries are struggling because of, as you know, the security, particularly in Europe, the security issues around the Ukraine war. Some of them are just linked to political reasons with less money going for ODA. So this is something that we as the GFF cannot solve, and definitely not the CSO team on this call here. And I think it's really important making sure that we keep reminding them about funding. The fact that they are not funding RMNCH and nutrition is really critical. It's more an investment than just asking them to fund it. By supporting this, there's several issues that they can cover. It's not just funding health, but it's also investing in economic opportunities for women and girls for tomorrow's development. So this is something that we need to emphasize, and that's why the role of the CSO constituency is important, not just the GFF. We have the statistics, we have the numbers, but they need, and this is something that's coming up more and more, they need impact stories. They need to know what is the value add of the GFF investment. And this is why we need to bring it to them so that they can, we can convince them. But again, this is a question that I cannot respond and that I cannot solve myself. On the percentage success of how much we think is going to be a success in terms of percentage, I would say 100%. I'm not looking for less, and I understand what you're saying. It might be a challenge raising that, but that is the target we have set, and we'll do everything we can across markets and in different channels to raise these funds. If we get more, that's fine, but I'm not hoping for something less than 800 million. Going backwards, Jackie, I know this is something that we've struggled with in the past, and that CSOs usually get that confused. The funding that is coming from the GFF, from the World Bank into countries is a contract that is signed between countries and the World Bank, between the Minister of Finance and the World Bank. It is not money that is going to CSOs. And this is something that is very confusing to a lot of partners, but it's something that we also have to clarify. And that's why CSOs have advocated and have received from the trust fund the 6 million that we received a few years ago, right? To make sure that there is independent funding that is allocated for CSOs. And that's why we want to raise this ambition with the trust fund. It's going to be part of the discussions we have next year, right? And if the funding that the ambition we want to raise, but I cannot tell you now that this is the number that we have raised, because it will, of course, depend on how much money the GFF will mobilize by the end of the year. So we need, the more money the GFF mobilizes, and it's in our interest to make sure that we get that 800 million, so that if we reach the target, then we have this hopefully guaranteed increase funding dedicated independently for civil society. What happens, and I can share this, in some countries, not all GFF countries, in some countries, what we have is that there are calls from the ministry, call for proposals for community-led interventions that is coming from the GFF investment case, from the World Bank funding that is coming at country level, that is already available at country level. These calls are not from the GFF Secretariat. These calls are from the Ministry of Finance or Ministry of Health to deliver on some activities that are directly linked with communities. And CSOs in those countries can apply for these calls and get this. And we have several examples across countries where this is happening. I was recently in Senegal, and I can confirm to you that this is something that CSOs in Senegal were able to, some CSOs in Senegal were able to deliver on this, on some adolescent and youth empowerment activities that the government cannot do themselves. So it's up to CSOs to apply for this funding through the dedicated channels that exist in country. I cannot speak to all 36 GFF countries, but this is happening. Another thing that is also, that might also be interesting to you, is part of my work, and this is part of the CSO engagement framework, is this incentivization of country governments to better work with CSOs, also work with World Bank teams and the GFF partners, so that there is, when there is an investment case or a new project with the GFF, there is a CSO component within, embedded in that project. And that is funding that we can also access directly to countries, right? So these are some of the things that we're seeing progress. We're seeing a lot of GFF and World Bank projects that have a CSO component that is led and implemented by CSOs, but that funding is totally different from the funding that we hope to achieve that is independent, such as the one that PAI is implementing right now. For Yemi, your question on the announcements, this is something I cannot speak to. I talked about the Netherlands investment of 100 million, which is going to cover the remainder of the GFF strategy, but we don't have, and we are in discussions with a lot of donors. But again, this is something that we will discuss. Maybe Mireya can come and Maziko and all the IG reps that are going to attend the IG meeting on Friday, maybe they can, they might have more information after the IG meeting, but these are some of the, information that we will update as the campaign goes. And on some of the activities that you want to implement in countries, you can directly, and I will leave my email here if you don't have it already, you can directly reach out to me if you have any activities that you want to implement in countries, or you want to have a intervention to support, whether it's online, in live, or a call to action, anything that you want to support, to support the campaign, please reach out to me, and we can by email, and we can have a discussion on how to move forward. I know some of you have already done this, Arafat, Oyeyemi, and Monte from Ghana as well. So you're welcome to reach out to me, and just we can discuss how to move forward. I'll stop there, and maybe I don't know if you have other questions, or we might want to move to the next session. Vincent, over to you.
Yes, thank you so much, Mati, and thank you very much for all the provided information. I'd like to commend also the IG reps for the shared question. I think that there have been several questions also in the chat, and I think about question about incentives to help CSO and YLO engage meaningfully. But I see that Cher Amatidian, you wanted maybe to unmute yourself. Did you have a question that you wanted to share with everybody? Cher, peut-être avez-vous une question que vous vouliez partager avec Mati avant que les représentantes du secrétariat nous quittent? Mais si ce n'est pas le cas, if it's not the case, I would like to thank very much Stephanie and Mati for their time, and also for their thorough presentation. And thank you everyone, I think, who have asked questions in the chat. I believe that many questions can be picked up by the IG reps, as we have only about 30 minutes left for the rest of our conversation and a discussion ahead of the IG16. Maybe we can usefully use the remaining half an hour to address some of your questions. So, Mati, I see you have one hand raised. Maybe you wanted to give some closing remarks.
Yes, thank you very much. And sorry, I haven't been able to monitor the chat, but I just wanted to address the question about the incentive and also respond to Dr. Bujari. Greetings to you, and yeah, good to see you on the call. Just about the incentive, it's happening. We have a few pilot countries, and we hope to expand it in all countries. It is part of the CSO engagement framework. It's the first pillar of that framework. So this is something that the GFF has committed to, and this is part of the work that I'm doing across countries. It might be seen as slow as we can't cover the 36 countries, but again, when I was starting, I was saying we started with no CSO dedicated civil society person at the GFF Secretariat. Now we have 2.5 people working on CSO engagement, and I am leading on this work on behalf of the Secretariat, but working directly with countries and working with GFF Secretariat, not only the liaison officers, but the focal points. They understand that it's, I would say, non-negotiable to have CSO engagement. And this is, it's a process. It's a process that takes time. We have to make people understand the value of CSOs, what CSOs are doing. Sometimes it's very confusing because there's many CSOs, and I can take the example of Niger. I think there are at least almost 3,000, and this was in 2020. We had almost 3,000 CSO registered health CSOs, RMNCA, HM. So how does the government work with one of them, right? So there's a long process that is happening, and we are committed to making sure that the incentive strategy is really embedded in the GFF, in the work of the GFF, but also the work of the World Bank. As you know, these are projects that are co-funded by the GFF and the World Bank, and some of the World Bank colleagues do not understand, or sometimes there's resistance or not willingness to engage CSOs. So it takes meetings, it takes times, dialogues, inclusion of CSOs, but first CSOs need to get organized. This is what we were told 6-7 years ago when the GFF was launched. Get organized, get your act together, excuse my, being blunt, but get your act together, get your action plan, coordinate, and then come up with a serious plan. And what do you want to do, how you want to do it. And I know some countries like Tanzania have been engaged a lot, but it's also understanding that the process is ongoing, but it takes time and it will get there. Hopefully, if we get more funds to allow more engagement at country level with the World Bank, with the GFF Secretariat. But this is part of my work, and we are very, very committed to making sure that this is happening. So the incentive strategy, I know questions come a lot. If there is willingness from the CSO constituency to have a dedicated discussion on what countries, what are we doing, how are we doing it, I'm happy to discuss it at a different time. I think that was the last question, and I'll stop there to leave you with the rest of the call. But thank you very much all for inviting us. I don't know if you want us to stay on the call or we should just leave.
Thank you very much, Miria. I think it was came as a request from the IG rep to have a session with the CSCG members. I think there is in full transparency. I will maybe give the floor to Miria to kickstart us about this and to make any executive decision. Thank you very much, Miria. Over to you.
Yes, thank you, Mati and Stephanie. Super useful to have you. And yeah, as we always do, we would like to have a moment, just the constituency, to discuss a little bit about what we would like to bring to the IG this Friday. But thank you so much for giving all this information and sharing.
Thanks so much for inviting us to join. So talk soon. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
See you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Stefan and Mati. Thank you.
Thank you.
And yeah, although we're a bit pressed by time,
as always, but we can get to it. Yeah.
Exactly. And we're used to that, I guess. It's business as usual. I'd like to give the floor to you, maybe Maziko and Miria, to kickstart us with this discussion ahead of the IG meeting. You are our principal civil society IG reps. So maybe if you could give, in 1 minute, your ambition for the meeting, what you expect as a main outcome, or maybe cover anything that pertains to the question in the chat, or the document of the IG itself, as well as the discussion we just had. So maybe 1 minute each before we switch to question from the participants. Would that be okay?
Yes. Can I start? Thank you so much, Vincent, and also to the Secretariat for that background information, which I think I shared earlier. I think our perspective to the IG is to make sure that we are representative of the CSOs and the youth. I was looking at the agenda because we have three main agenda, which have been ably explained by Stephanie and Marty. The agenda on governance roadmap, I think Maria will share more, is that meaningful engagement of the civil society and the youth in terms of the governance, in all the governance platforms within the GFF. I think civil society and the youth have to be there so that we can put and give the necessary feedback. In terms of evaluation, my expectations, but I think my colleagues also say something about it, will be that in terms of the evaluation, would want to see that the evaluation also looking into other evaluations which has already been done. For example, the World Health Organization did the gap analysis, and also see what are the issues which is coming out from those evaluation, so that we're going to be able to say in each country what would be the best way in terms of moving forward. But also how do we evaluate programs from country level, from the CSA level, but also from the Secretariat, so that we have those inputs in terms of making sure that things are done. In terms of the resource mobilization, I think we have able to explain, the Secretary has able to explain through Marty on what are the bigger issues we need to consider. We need about the $800 million US, and what is more striking is that we also need to make sure that as civil society and the youth will have resources through the NGO host. So the bigger picture, listening to the Secretary presentation, is that if you don't get enough resources, then we'll have a struggle. Our NGO host will not be able to support our civil society in terms of the grants, small grants we are receiving. So it also be important as the civil society, we show results in our campaign, and also making sure that we're able to influence more, so that when we get more money, it means our NGO hosts also get more money on resources, which can support civil society and the youth to do more work, which we are doing at the moment. So to me, I think those are top level, but I think in the details, I think my colleagues can also explain. So over to Miriam, if you have anything to add. Thank you.
Yes, I mean, we can get into the details of the documents, but let's see the bigger picture here. Important that the governance documents is for endorsement. We shared it. We don't have any red flags as a delegation, but open to hear if anyone in the call who read it has any red flag that we can bring, because it's a decision-making moment. The input is what I shared in the beginning. We really want to see good flow of IG to the TFC. We really want to see still one of the co-chairs of the IG at least to be present at the Trust Fund Committee to maintain representation of the IG there. And in terms of the evaluation, what Maziko said, to make sure that indeed civil society has a seat at the steering committee, that's a given, but to see how we can meaningfully engage. I'm not going to get into the KPIs, the indicators in detail, but I have to say that I'm quite happy with how they have developed them, because they catch over a lot of issues of health systems, gender equality, inclusion, and diversity, also in data. in governance of the private sector. That was interesting to see, because that's something that we have been asking as well, like to make sure that you also evaluate the engagement with the private sector and blended finance. That was one new chapter of the 2021-2025 strategy. So yeah, and I think on the resource mobilization, my colleagues before covered all of our points, but I really want to hear from our participants here if they noticed something or if they have any issues they want us to bring forward.
Yes, thank you so much, Miria. I'd like to extend your invitation, since this is a dedicated discussion and we have about 20 minutes for this, maybe a bit less, 15 minutes. We would really recommend that you share your insights, your remarks, any question you might have with you right now, either in the chat or by raising your hand. It would be very valuable for the contribution of our IG reps directly at the meeting. I see our longtime CSCG member, Annette, who's on the call, has raised their hands. Thank you so much for volunteering and kickstarting us here. Over to you.
Good evening from Kenya. This is the Health NGOs Network. My name is Sharon Msakali. Mine perhaps is maybe just to want some more clarity. For Kenya, we are just about to apply for the reinvestment because the Kenya Ramka investment case lapsed 2 years ago, and then we got an extension which is ending in September. So what position, like how best do we, for the CSOs, how best could we position ourselves to influence the new reinvestment or the second phase of GFF, because Kenya was amongst the 4 pilot countries? Just maybe in terms of insights, how best do we reposition ourselves as CSOs, because Hennet coordinates the Ramka coordination group in Kenya for around GFF and beyond. Yes.
Thank you, Maziko, for offering to answer. Over to you, Dave.
Yes, that's a very, very good question from Kenya. I know Kenya was one of the front-run countries. I think as IGs, I think those are some of the questions we're going to ask. Once, if indeed there will be a presentation in terms of the feedback on how countries have done and which new countries are coming in to be supported. And we are going to find out how different countries are going to be supported. But looking at the agenda, we have seen that agenda, we have 3 agenda items. So we'll see how best we can also maybe ask that question, so that when we come out of the IG meeting, we're going to be able to give you feedback. And my sister Miria is also here. We can find out the first front-run countries, how are they faring in terms of the support they received, and how are they going to get the next one? Maybe Maria have something to say. Over.
Yeah, if I got also the question right, is also how better the civil society can be involved in the review of the investment case. And I think it goes really with what we do with the resource mobilization, like showing impact stories, and also showcase that the GFF is all about multi-stakeholder involvement. Like, it's non-negotiable that civil society should be in the country platform and involved. And, you know, in a way, countries that are GFF countries, and they are in this, have also committed to that. So you have a lot of leverage to claim your space, I think, because this is part of the whole idea of the GFF partnerships, that Kenya also was one of the first countries to join in. I see another hand, Vincent, so I'll stop.
Absolutely. We have Jacob, I think, with us. Thank you very much. Over to you, Jacob. Come up with your question or remarks. The floor is yours.
Okay, thank you so much. My question is about, sorry, I'm Jacob Wumi from Kenya, Young Professionals for Development, also a member of EDET. My concern is about how the GFF Investors Group is allocating funds to several countries. What measures are they using to evaluate the success of the projects in those countries, and to be able to determine, using those measures or the reports of those measures, to be able to determine which amounts are giving each country and the criteria for giving to those countries. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Jacob. I think it's a very good question. I'd like to, Maziko was first in raising his hand. I don't know if that was legacy, but maybe you want to answer. And then Miria, if you have any additional elements.
I think that's another important question. Normally, yes, there's a criteria which is used, but I think for the sake of this discussion, I think when we have the post-IG meeting, we'll be able to get more information from the Secretariat so that we can be able to share some of these things, the criteria they normally use, because yes, there's a criteria which is normally used. As it was shared by, is it, I think, Marty, that normally the negotiations are done within the World Bank and the Ministries of Finance in terms of determining which countries, but also which areas of support. So I think the post-IG meeting, those are some of the key questions which we'll be able to respond once we get the criteria at the moment, which is being used in terms of allocation of resources to countries. Over.
Can I come in quickly to that? Because it's really important to know, Jacob, that when it comes to allocation of funding, when it comes to decisions about second round of funding, amounts, this is not something that the IG decides. So that's important for you to note. This is decided by the Trust Fund Committee, where we don't have a seat and where recipient countries don't have a seat, which is always something that, well, it has been a point of discussion for us, quite heated. So you will see that also in the governance document, in what is for approval, what is for guidance and everything. When it comes to money, it's the Trust Fund Committee that decides. So that's why we want the investors group also to be before the Trust Fund Committee meeting, so we can provide any sort of advice that then they can take into account into funding decisions.
Thank you so much, Miria, for this very useful, I think, precision. And thank you, Maziko, also for your answer. Douglas, thank you for raising your hands. Please, over to you, if you have any question.
Thank you. I just want, based on the question of representation of local organization, especially with focus to youth-led organization and women-led organization, I just want to say that we need to enhance the dissemination of information, because we will definitely ask that who knows what is happening at the grassroots level. So the dissemination of the information is very key, and also their participation, not go at the national and the global level. And for us to achieve localization agenda, we must ensure that the information is disseminated back to the local communities, local youth and women-led organization. And thank you.
Thank you, Douglas. You were slightly breaking up, but I think we were able to get your statement and your remark, which makes a lot of sense. I don't know if anyone from the IG rep or the youth rep want to react to that. Miria?
Yeah, these are all these sticky points always. So this is another thing that we have been pushing for a lot for the Trust Fund Committee, if I hear you well, that was the question, to share the minutes of their meetings. That had not been happening, but we managed to have them share the decisions of the Trust Fund Committee a bit more timely, and that comes in as an announcement in the GFF website. So yeah, that's, but I totally agree with you that there is some lack of transparency there still.
Thank you so much, Miria. I just wanted to highlight also maybe to get back to Sharon's question regarding Kenya. Among the background documents and the strategy KPIs, you will find that in strategic direction number 2, that pertains to civil society and youth participation, there are different indicators of success and different levels of engagement by civil society and youth participation. And for countries where the IC has been finalized, one of the indicators of GFF success is also the participation, the extensive and constructive, meaningful participation of CSOs and YLOs in the regular review of the implementation progress. So maybe that's where also the opportunities and future of CSO and YLO engagement stays when it comes to Kenya, since you're at the forefront, let's say, of the global financing facility. I hope that's useful, and but thank you very much, everyone, for your questions. If there is any additional question, I would recommend that you use the chat, as we will have to move a bit quickly towards the latest CSCG updates, as well as the closing remarks from our panelists. So if you allow me, I would like to provide a couple of updates from our coordinating group. And first of all, you're very much welcome to use the QR code that has been developed for the CSCG members who are present at Women Deliver, either in person or virtually, where you can consult, and I think it was mentioned in the chat, you can, first of all, subscribe to our newsletter. You can consult a bit about what is the CSCG, who is the leaders of the elected leaders of the CSCG, the steering committee members, investors group representative, working groups, chairs, co-chairs. And so we very much recommend that you use this link, and we will share it also together with the minutes of this call. This will help you also find a link to all the background documents for the IG16, as well as a link to the various forms that we plan to use for you to share your impact stories, as well as any other message of support or commitment for the GFF or for sexual, reproductive, maternal, newborn, child, adolescent health, and nutrition at large. So we welcome your contribution here. This will be very valuable for all the GFF stakeholders, as Matti mentioned, first and foremost also for the existing donors and the future donors. In addition to that, we would like to invite you to visit our booth at the Women Deliver Conference. For those of you who are already in Kigali, you see this is happening live, as Miria is showing you. Our IG reps, IG and youth reps, as well as so many other CSCG members who are present in Kigali will be welcoming you. But you can also, as CSCG member, you can also step behind the desk and, inform other Women Deliver participants, about our activity, our engagement in Kigali and beyond. So please join us and come and say hi in person to our IG and youth rep. They will be thrilled of having you there. In addition, so I just pointed out that we would like you to, and thank you very much. The stand is the stand M9 in the exhibition center. So hopefully you can locate them. You can easily connect with our CSCG colleagues. Just a reminder, we would like you to share your impact stories and your voices no later than by the end of August. And you can use the QR code again to share your support messages. Don't hesitate to contact us if you have any question regarding this. You can share any written statements, but we welcome also any other video or audio statements that you would like to share with us. We will at your disposal, to share them together with the GFF Secretariat and maybe make a mosaic of support message and impact stories. We will also highlight your impact stories in our bi-monthly newsletter and any other ad hoc newsletter edition that we will share, that we might share along the Deliver the Future timeline. In addition, we are very pleased to announce that our newsletter is coming up this week while at Women Deliver and ahead of the IG meeting. and there will be an announcement for upcoming election for the CSCG. So the CSCG will be recruiting for various positions for the steering committee and our newly created independent advisory board. There will be more information on this together with your newsletter. So use the QR code to make sure you're subscribed to our bi-monthly newsletter, and more updates will come to you. Finally, we will also share an announcement regarding our member survey. We would definitely like you to participate in our survey no later than by the end of August. This will be very useful to evaluate how successful we have been for the past 12 months, as well as give us also some important indication for our upcoming strategic plan and annual work plan for the 23-24 period. That includes also the resource mobilization campaign. So we would like to thank you very much in advance for all your feedback you can share. And I would like, if I may, give the floor to back to our IG rep Maziko and our NGO host Christina, maybe starting with Christina, if that's okay, for a quick overview of our engagement at Women Deliver and the postcard that Miria just shared with you.
Slide. Oh, go ahead. Yeah. So I make a plug again to invite all of you to join the CSCG. I think many of you are already on this group, but if not, please join us. Here's information about joining us. We will send this to you by email as well. And if you scan this, you can register for the CSCG. And again, it's a global network of change makers working at the global level as well as the country level to really make sure that civil society and young people are at the table to shape investment cases, drive accountability. I've seen some really strong interest here in making sure that there's more funding to civil society out of the money that governments get. I think that's a really great agenda that the CSCG is moving forward. So here are all the things that we do collectively. Please join us. When you join us, and here are all the ways you can connect with us. We'll send out emails through a listserv. We have a very active WhatsApp group. Thank you, Miria. And also we have ongoing learning and exchange across our network. So for example, our colleagues in West Africa, Kenneth and Arafat, just held a really great webinar for West African colleagues, Francophone countries, about youth-led accountability, including how to engage more and better with the GFF Secretariat. And I know that Arafat and colleagues in East and Southern Africa will be doing a similar webinar about youth-driven accountability in the coming months. So if you join us, you can both participate in that learning exchange and also share resources and tools. So that's it for me, just wanting to make a plug to join this really vibrant community of change makers. And I'm going to hand it over to Masiko for parting words.
Yes, Maziko, are you still with us? The floor is yours.
Yes. First of all, I want to thank Christina, the Vice President at PI, our host, but also most importantly, Vincent, for good moderation. As IG, we are proud and happy that at least we are able to get feedback from our constituency, whom we're going to share with the IG when we meet on Friday. And we're able to give you feedback on what comes up after the Friday IG meeting, so that to see which other things we had discussed, most especially even other issues which has come from countries like Kenya and others, so that we'll be able to give you that right free feedback. But don't take this for granted, because our position is representative. We'll represent you very well on Friday and we'll be able to give you feedback as necessary. And as IG, as has been shared, that we have booth number 9 at the Women's World Deliver Conference, which is taking place at the moment. We have a good branding there, and I'm happy to see more CSOs, more CSG members showing interest to help at the managing the booth. As IG, we have said that we might have a briefing at the booth, so that we speak the same language as people come in and go in. So who's going to share on the WhatsApp, as Christine has mentioned, on the timeline, which some of you might be able to want to come, so that we can be able to have a chat and also a briefing, so that when people are coming to see our booth number 9, M number 9 at the pavilion, they'll be able to see our voices. But I'm happy that finally we're able to get voices from our constituency. With a few remarks, I want to thank you so much. God bless you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Maziko. And I'd like to give the floor to Kenneth for our closing remarks in French. Thank you, Kenneth, for very brief remarks. Thank you. Merci.
Merci Vincent, merci à tous ceux qui ont pris la parole. J'espère que la traduction se passe bien. Je vais m'exprimer en français pour donner mes closing remarks, mes remarques de fin. Comme Maziko le disait, on parle votre langue et on parle aussi plusieurs langues. Donc, pour ceux qui sont présents à Women Deliver, n'hésitez pas à venir nous voir. Nous sommes bien présents en français comme en anglais. On pourra échanger avec vous sur les enjeux sur lesquels le GFF travaille, sur les enjeux, les raisons pour lesquelles nous sommes ici aussi. Il y aura vraiment des échanges assez riches. N'hésitez pas à venir. Nous sommes disponibles. Il y a une question qui a été abordée tout à l'heure et qui concerne vraiment l'engagement des jeunes. J'aimerais vraiment profiter ici pour dire que partout dans tous les pays constituant le GFF, les organisations de jeunes se mobilisent et travaillent vraiment pour atteindre des objectifs sur la question de la santé de la reproduction, mères, nouveau-nés, enfants, adolescents et jeunes. Et ce travail-là, il faut vraiment le mettre en avant. Nous avons organisé une réunion la dernière fois. On a été vraiment content d'avoir des organisations de jeunes de toutes les parties de l'Afrique. L'idée pour nous, c'est de continuer ce genre de mobilisation-là, de continuer parce que nous avons vu que au niveau du GFF, il y a vraiment une envie de renforcer l'impact des organisations de la société civile, mais aussi et surtout des organisations de jeunes sur les enjeux qui les concernent. On fait le Pre-IG Webinar aujourd'hui, donc on se dit que l'objectif principal là, de cette rencontre, c'est de préparer le webinaire sur le groupe des investisseurs. Mais j'ai envie de vous dire à tous qui êtes présents aujourd'hui que c'est vraiment une étape vers quelque chose que nous sommes en train de construire ensemble. Nous sommes en train de construire cette mobilisation-là qui va passer par la mobilisation des ressources du GFF, mais qui va passer également par plus.
Kenneth, it seems we've lost you. Maybe you want to continue here.
I've been disconnected. Can you hear me? Est-ce que vous pouvez m'entendre?
Parfait.
OK. Donc, je disais que cette étape-là va nous permettre justement de continuer le travail que nous avons entrepris avec la campagne de mobilisation des ressources qui va permettre aux organisations de la société civile et aux organisations de jeunes de mieux s'organiser. Parce que c'est ce qui nous manque. Beaucoup plus d'organisations, la capacité à montrer mieux ce que nous faisons pour qu'aujourd'hui, nous soyons vraiment au cœur de la construction des stratégies et de la mise en place des résultats pour pouvoir avoir plus d'impact dans le futur. Je vais m'arrêter là en espérant que ça ne se coupe pas encore une fois. Je vous remercie.
Merci beaucoup. Merci, Kenneth. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for staying with us also 5 additional minutes. For those already in Women Deliver and in Kigali or attending Women Deliver virtually, we don't want to take more time from you, and please go attend the Women Deliver opening session. We wish you all the best for a week long of engagement, and we look forward to connecting with you again very soon. All the best and stay safe wherever you are. À bientôt. Au revoir.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vincent.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, baby. I can see you.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye.
Yeah.